seeing Chris Harris and Jared Edwards and Josh Mayfield. So I think that makes 4 of us. So we will call this meeting to order and get the ball rolling. Okay. So looking at my
Hang on just a second, Jared. Let's get Heather back here so she can take notes.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good. I was going to let her call the roll anyway, so we better let her wait till she comes back. So.
She'll be back in just a second. She had to run somebody downstairs.
No problem. Well, it looks like you and Kurt are back, at least working in the office, not at home anymore, huh?
Yeah, I'm pretty much here every day, but she's limited on the day she's coming in at this point.
Gotcha.
Jared, I am recording, so if you want to go ahead and get started, you can do that, and she can listen.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Okay. Well, we will go ahead and call the meeting to order again, and then get this ball rolling. Says first thing we need to do is take the roll, and so I'm seeing. Let's see, as far as members go, I'm seeing myself, Jared Fears. I'm seeing Chris Harris, Jared Edwards, Josh Mayfield. I'm also seeing a phone number. I'm not sure if that's someone connected to, a member or someone else. Do we have any other members on the committee online? Okay. Heather, I just identified the members that are here. Do we need to identify staff, or do you want to do that?
We can do that. Looks like we have Ken Jernigan, Brad Halsey, Dania Leap, Mark Randall, and Chief Short.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from April 22nd meeting. Hope everybody had a chance to look at those. I took a look at them and they look good to me, but so I guess I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes unless anybody wants to make any suggested changes.
This is Chris Harris, and I move to accept the minutes.
All right, thank you, Chris. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Josh. All right. Any discussion, any questions? If not, then all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And we decided last time that we need to call a roll. Is that correct? Since we're on video, I'm just double checking that. One of the staff tell me for sure on that.
I think you're correct.
Okay. So I will do that then. Josh, you want to say yes or no?
Yes.
And Jared
Yes.
and Chris,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So we're good to go on approving the minutes. All right, good. The next item on the agenda is an update from the fire department. So Chief Short, are you
Yes, I'll be handling it today.
okay?
Okay, so we sent out our report. As you know, our typical report has generally read over the last couple times. So on page 2, we get it past the background and talk a little bit about the unassigned fund balance, which was at the beginning of the year, fiscal year, which would have been July 1 of 2019, was at $1,505,114. That would have been drawn down for the purchase of the aerial ladder, as you recall, earlier in the year. However, due to COVID issues, we are going to turn that money back over into that unassigned fund balance and lease the vehicle for a 5-year term lease, just to make sure that we are surviving any potential losses from tax revenue over this next year. That's part of the COVID response, which I'll talk a little bit about here in just a second. So as our last meeting, we talked a little bit about that, and that we were anticipating somewhere around a 14 to 20% loss of revenue in this fiscal year, and then another 4 to 6, depending on how long the recovery would be into next fiscal year for the fire tax revenue. However, amazingly enough, that has actually changed, and it is not as bleak at this point as it was first determined. City Manager Zach Walker explained to the council the other night, and I'll kind of just give you a summary if you want to watch their council meeting. You can get a little more detail to that, but initially our thought was at the end of this year we would probably be close to $300,000 short of our projected revenue, but with the help of the increases in some of our bigger box stores, our grocery stores, and our I guess Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards type centers, we're actually only looking at now about being at estimated about 17,000 under our anticipated revenue, which is good. At this point, we don't know what the effects will be as we go further. We know, as Zach had explained, that probably a good chance that the unemployment, the extra unemployment, as well as the extra stimulus that was given out, caused folks to go out while they were at home, basically with nothing to do, and spend money to improve their homes. However, as those things move away, we'll have to wait and see if that continues. So into the next page just kind of gets into our different expenditures that we had. One thing that I will tell you is once the COVID started, we reduced our spending to only things related to COVID. So essentially our expenditures pretty much stopped, even in the sales tax, with the exception of dealing with some equipment and that was necessary during this process. And we only have recently, now that we know what our year ending is coming up to, have done a few encumbrances, which aren't listed on here, but they are, because they were just completed, we've have enough that we're comfortable in making a few purchases that are actually on next year's budget to try and decrease that amount that we need to pay out next year. And those are for some computer needs that we have, IT needs. We have to replace 35 computers, so we're going to do about half of those. And the other is we have to replace the mobile gateways, which brings in our communications for our mobile data terminals in the trucks. We have to replace all of those. For the cost of both of those, we anticipate right around $55,000 between computers and those mobile gateways that was encumbered. Other than that, we should be well under budget for this year by the year end. And going into next year's budget we'll probably still be kind of frugal starting off until we know what the outlook's going to be on some of the things we had budgeted for into the next year.
Okay.
Any questions?
Questions from anyone? Okay. Well, if not, then we'd like to entertain a motion to accept the quarterly report from the fire department.
Hey, Chris Harris, I'll move to accept the quarterly report.
Okay, do we have a second?
I suppose I'll second it.
All right, thank you. All right, then we will call the roll. I guess we'll go down the same order that I did before, just because that's the order that you guys are on my screen here. Josh?
Yeah.
Jared?
Yep.
And Chris?
Yes.
And I would give a yes as well. So, all right. It's the first time I don't recall any questions for the fire department. It's pretty impressive, you know. Or everybody's tired at the end of the day here or something. But no, that's good. All right, let's move on to update from the police department. I'm not sure who's doing that, so.
Hi, everybody. This is Chief Halsey. Yeah, I'll let Dania kind of go through like she does. She's the expert, so let her go through that information. I do have one additional item when she's done that I will discuss with you all as well.
Okay, thank you, Chief. All right, Dania, we're gonna.
Okay. So page 1, as always, just has a little blurb about the background of the tax. The real meat of the report starts on page 2. It shows our beginning fund balance as of July 1st, 2019 was at $2,483,919. Our sales tax collected through May was $2,068,701, and it shows the $45,283 is investments and other income. So our total revenue showing through May is $4,597,903. And our original projection for sales tax this year is listed there at $2,245,000. So you can kind of see that, yeah, just like Chief Short explained, our revenue that we were originally thinking was going to be quite a bit lower is a lot closer to what the original projection was going to be. We still have June to factor in there, but not nearly as bad off as we thought we were going to be. Then there is a list of the amounts that we had budgeted and what we've spent to date and the balances in each of those for the communications, facilities, and equipment expenses that are listed there on page 2 and 3. Are there any questions on any of those items?
Anybody have any questions or observations they want to make?
We do have items encumbered still in the amount of 525,000. There's a list on page 3 of what that consists of. Most of that is related to the 10 Ford Explorers that we had ordered and the equipment to outfit those. Those were originally supposed to come in July, and with COVID, we're not sure when exactly we're going to get those. It's probably going to be a few more months down the road. But there at the bottom of page 3, it shows what our overall fund balance is when you take out those expenses and the encumbrances. And our fund balance will, at the end of May is $2,317,542.
We still have a healthy balance going into the new year.
Yes. And on page 4, that's just what we have budgeted for next year. So you can take a look at that. There's only 2 new items that are listed there in the equipment section. There's additional L3 access points and 6 interview room updates that are needed at headquarters.
Just for my, to help my ignorance, what's a L3 access point?
So that is where the in-car video systems, they download at these points. So you have to have these points. The problem we have now, because these cars run, most of the cars in patrol, for example, run 24/7. We need additional points positioned at headquarters, and I believe special ops is what we're looking at, to have additional access points to download those videos. Otherwise, a car may not be downloaded, for some time, and we have to have that information downloaded so we have that video accessible if somebody needs or requests a video from those cars. Ken, you want to add anything to that or not?
No, I think you covered pretty much everything on that.
And just out of curiosity on the interview room updates, what kind of, would that be like new technology, new?
Yeah. So it's basically, that just needs to be updated. Yes, it's old equipment at this point. The microphones are failing. I think one of the 3 rooms is actually working at this point, and as you can imagine, that's important to have evidence, interviews with victims or suspects alike. So that is that issue and investigations unit is a high priority. And quite frankly, keeping up with our cameras that we have down at the detention facility also is another one that we've talked about recently, to make sure that we keep those up and running in good shape to have all that documented.
But
And also, if I can speak real quick, if you guys recall, we bought some of the Dodge Chargers. You're going to start seeing, we have those deployed in the field now. They're white. The original thought on that was because the Ford Interceptors went up in cost and they changed the specifications to where we had to buy new equipment to fit in those vehicles. At the time, the Dodge Chargers were about, I believe, $10,000 cheaper. So we bought, I believe, 9 or 10 of those. And Denny or Ken, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But after we purchased those, then lo and behold, Dodge came out and said, hey, we're stopping production. We don't know the cost of the new cars that are going to be coming. We don't know if the dimensions are going to change. So that's why we bought the Ford Interceptors, because we cannot delay those. If we delay, then we start getting to a lot of maintenance costs and everything else. So the white cars that you see out are assigned to our traffic division. We have, I believe, 3 of those out now, and the rest are getting finished now.
okay, thank you. That's helpful. Any other questions for Chief or anybody on the police side? All right, I don't hear any. I'm not trying to cut anybody off, but if not, I'd entertain a motion to accept the quarterly report from the police department.
Well, it's Chris Harris, and I'll move to accept the report.
All right, Chris, thank you. Anybody want to second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, Josh, thank you. We have a repeat performance here today. All right, any further questions? If not, could you vote on that?
We do have a separate use tax report to go over.
Okay, do we need to do that first or do we do that second? I was going to ask about that. I didn't know if we were accepting that one. You know, we were at the point where we're ready to start making that an official action, or if that was just going to be a review.
Yeah, just a suggestion, Dania, if you think of this differently, please say so. But I would almost do what you're saying there, Mr. Fears. We can go through the public safety sales tax information if you guys want to, and then you guys can vote on that. And if you want, we can then report on the use tax if that's easier for note taking and all that.
Yeah, that's what I think we ought to do, and then that way it's a separate, action item if we need. And I didn't know if we're ready to approve those yet, or actually take official action on that report, or whether that's going to come after the first of the fiscal year. I just didn't know how that would work.
Yeah, there is revenues coming in, and that's what I was going to speak to you guys about as far as equipment that we're looking at under the use tax that we have not purchased, but we wanted to, out of all due respect, run this by you all, make sure there's no questions you have on that. But other than that, Dania, I'm not really sure what other information. I'm trying to switch screens here now to look at that.
Yeah, basically it's just the revenue that we're reporting right now, and then we were going to show what the budget is for next year, and then we had a couple questions regarding the equipment.
Okay, well, let's take action on the sales tax report for the police, and then we'll move into the use tax. Josh, do you want to vote on that?
Yeah.
And Jared?
Yep.
And Chris?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that kind of takes that line item. So let's go ahead and then talk about the use tax and let you report that on that.
Okay. It's pretty short and sweet. Hopefully everybody got a copy of it as well. There is background information on the use tax, just like on the sales tax, and it's probably something I'll leave on there for each report, so it's there for anyone to go back and take a look at the particulars of the tax. Revenues are on page 2. It shows the amount collected so far this year, just for, this is the police department portion, with the interest earned is at $478,588. This is quite a bit more.
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're only reporting then on the police department half of it, not the animal shelter half. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
just to make sure I understood that. Okay.
Right. So yeah, for the total amount collected, double it as far as what the city has brought in. So this amount that you're going to see here is just the police side.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, it's growing quite a bit faster than what was originally expected. The projection was 1.5 million for the city, so we were expecting 750,000 for police for a year, and that's what we use to budget for next fiscal year. So at the bottom of page 2, it's showing the budget at 750,000 and how that is divided up between salary and benefits. And we're looking at hiring 4 officers and 2 sergeants and equipping the 4 new officers and purchasing 3 vehicles. Is there any questions on that?
Okay. No, I just would refer the committee to also to the email that we got from forwarded to us from Zach Walker regarding the use tax and the information that was shared with the mayor on that memo. Just want to. I mean, I don't think we certainly don't need to take any action on that. It's just kind of interesting to know what's going on there, and then also to hear the report that it is coming in better and than expected. Which really, I think, I don't know about anybody else, but I've been buying a whole lot more stuff online and having it shipped here. So, you know, if I'm any indication of what the general public is doing, then that would be, you know, similar. So you had some other comments on this, Chief?
Yes, thank you. So one of the things that I wanted to bring up to the committee here is there's a couple areas that with the current state of affairs across the nation, we have not had, thankfully, we've had peaceful protesting. Hopefully it always stays that way. But quite frankly, we are woefully under-equipped and trained. It's been some time. We have Deputy Chief Jarring and I have just completed majority of about every uniform officer, spend time at shift roll calls. One of the questions that we ask is civil disorder training. When's the last time anybody's had that? That's important, as everybody has seen on TV. If you do that improperly, that is not good for the community. That's not good for protesters, and that's not good for law enforcement. Part of that, of the 30 officers that we're going to be hiring, there's protective equipment that is needed. The plan would be this. That equipment, for example, protective helmets, bulletproof, bullet resistant, however you want to say it, with the face shields. There was a Missouri State Trooper that was going to St. Louis. Unfortunately, they had about 1,000 rounds fired from different people, and one of those struck the patrol vehicle and hit the face shield that he was wearing, saving his, probably saving his life. That's also important. I just want to make sure I really cover this because it's such a sensitive topic right now. Not only the training, but why for the equipment. The equipment is to protect not just the officers, to protect people that have every right to be out there protesting peacefully. But when things do go wrong, or you have certain actors that are, you know, throwing devices or, God forbid, you know, shooting rounds, that equipment becomes very essential. So what we'd like to do is start equipping these officers that are hired under the use tax to have that equipment on hand. And again, that's one of those things where we hope we never have to use it, never even have to put it on. We just recently, we've been working on another concept for about 1.5 years. We now have a police foundation in place. We have a board of directors. We have the 501c3 in place. The idea down the road, the board will be the ones. We have 2 missions for the foundation, and I apologize, this is getting a little windy, but the two missions of the foundation is to raise money for crime and disorder reduction, so cameras, safety equipment training, and the second piece of that is employee wellness, to help when somebody's in financial need. For example, God forbid, an employee has a child that has cancer and they're not able to work, they're not able to pay a bill. The foundation will vote and be able to step in and help that employee with private funds. But part of that mission would be to also include this additional equipment that we're talking about down the road through possibly being purchased by the foundation. So every officer, commissioned officer would have that equipment available. So we're only talking about the equipment that would be for the new officers hired under this use tax. We have not ordered that. We want to make sure to run this by you as a committee to make sure you guys get any answers that you have on questions related to that.
So I guess the question I would have is, you're just to make sure I'm completely understanding, you're saying that you would purchase that equipment for these particular officers that are being hired with the funds from this particular use tax, and then for other officers elsewhere, in the police force, then you would purchase their equipment from other sources, whether that be the sales tax or the foundation or wherever else you could obtain funds. Am I understanding that correct?
Yes, that is absolutely correct. That equipment would only be purchased for officers hired under the use tax. We would make sure to be clear and transparent about anything above and beyond that would be from other funding sources.
Okay. Well, anybody have any concern or question about that?
I have just one question, I guess. Chief, when you're hiring an officer, would you consider that type of gear to be necessary?
Yes. At this point, and the reason I'm going to say that is this: if you look over the past decade, I don't care what reason. There's multiple reasons out there. When I was down in the National FBI Academy here not too long ago, we toured the site where the white supremacists drove through the crowd, and that obviously created civil unrest in that area. My point is this: I believe if you look at history now, you're going to have incidents across this nation that's going to create protesting. And again, let me be clear about this. Everybody has the American right to protest. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the small minority that start creating problems within those protests that we unfortunately have to deal with appropriately and hopefully peacefully. So yeah, I would absolutely at this point in our lives, I would say that that's absolutely necessary equipment. Correct.
So you're going to be looking for or trying to find other sources to buy the same same equipment for other, the rest of the force, or at least some portion of them, right?
Yes, the first would be the foundation. The secondary source could possibly be, I always tell you all, we love taking money from drug dealers and using that to protect the community. Being forfeiture money, that would be another option. It could be at some point down the road if finances get better for the city. It could even be a general fund request, or the PST. I think the public safety sales tax money, honestly, as we all know, there is no really extra money in that. We have that money for ongoing maintenance and all that. So that's why I keep referring back to the police foundation, forfeiture money and such things like that. But it would not be using use tax unless that officer is hired under the use tax funding.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions?
Oh, can I ask one more question? Sorry.
Sure.
Do we know roughly how much it costs just for one set of that type of equipment?
Yeah, I know. And Ken, you may have to speak up if you've seen it. I know that we've had a committee looking at that, the equipment and the cost of that. And I want to say the helmets with the shields, the ballistic shields, I believe they're about $900. I believe you can get non-ballistic shields, but again, unfortunately, with as many officers that have been shot within recent years, different incidents and all that, I think that for the safety of the community and the officers, I think it's best that we spend a little bit more money for the ballistic rated equipment. That has a 10-year expiration date. So, just like our vest, in 5 years, our vest, the warranty will not cover. The helmets and the shields that we're talking about have a 10-year life, basically, before they have to be replaced.
I'm looking for the email right now, Chief, to find that price.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna, while Ken's looking for that, I'm gonna jump to a related question, but to follow up from last meeting. And that was, the question kind of was connected to how the hiring process is going and if you're having any luck and if you anticipate being able to actually hire some of these folks, in a reasonable time frame, or if that's still being pretty challenging for you.
Yeah, very good question. More challenging than ever for a number of reasons. We have a community relations group. There's two different. The mayor, as you all know, or if you don't know, she created a diversity inclusion committee for the city. About 6 months after I took the position as chief, we started a community relations committee to talk about this very issue as far as what do we do different, thinking outside the box to recruit people that want to do this job. And I'm going to be very honest with you. We've had 2 resignations within the last 2 weeks. It's pretty tough. What I will say, I'm very proud of our community. We have a lot of support in our community. The community relations group is a very diverse group of our community, and we've met twice since the senseless killing of George Floyd. But I will tell you that our discussions are focused more on the youth outreach right now, of communicating with them, along with how do we recruit, not just officers, but how do we recruit minorities? How do we recruit? We're talking about a cadet program. There's a lot of different things that the community relations committee, we're engaged in that conversation right now. It's going to be tough. That's the bottom line. I do believe there's going to be, people that are interested to do the job for the right reason that we all sign up for, to make a difference in the community. But I think on the other side of that, there's a lot of questions right now of people that may not want to be doing this job as well. So are we going to be able to find quality people? We will. It may take some time because, as I stated before, we're not just going to hire anybody to fill these positions. We want good people that have good hearts, that are going to serve the community well, because otherwise, if we don't and we lower our standards, then we're going to have a lot more issues within our community, as a police department and all that. So the biggest challenge we've had recently with we're waiting to hear. I talked to Kansas City PD yesterday. That's where we send recruits to get trained at their police academy. They're looking at doing, even if they are not able to hire officers this budget year, if there's enough people, outside agencies that are needing to send people to get training, they will do that. So we're waiting to hear that. We've also had communication with the MCC Blue River Police Academy. There's been some changes out there, so we're kind of waiting to hear back from that as well. So hopefully all this will line out. We have 3 people right now. We have 2 females and a male that are waiting to go to the academy. We have them working. They're working the road. They're learning how to do reports. I say working the road. They're doing ride-alongs with training officers. They're learning how to do reports. So we're making use of that time by getting them the education and training before they go to the academy. Again, I apologize for a very long-winded explanation, but it's a very complex issue right now. So if I didn't explain anything or need to go into more detail, please tell me. I'll be more than happy to do that.
No, that's helpful. I just was kind of wanting an update on that. So. All right. Any other questions for related to the use tax?
I have that price on the helmets if you're needing that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, helmets, the ballistic helmet with a face shield for each helmet, $420 per helmet.
Okay. Well, that's good. It's about half of what the chief said, so we can, we're good. So that's helpful information just to put it in context, I think. So that is good. So. All right. Someone help me a little bit. Do we need to, it seems to me like we probably ought to accept the use tax report. Does that seem like a reasonable approach? There's not much of a report really yet, but
we did have a second question that was on page 3 of our report regarding the what does the committee think about the need to fill existing vacancies before we start filling those on the use tax? Can they be done concurrently, or what's the opinion on that?
So let me ask a question on that. So your other, your normal hiring, your existing vacancies would be out of primarily the general fund, or would that be right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, my sense of it would be is that the only thing that the use tax can be used for, based on my understanding, is for personnel and equipment related to those personnel. My perspective would be is that it's not doing any good if we don't spend it. So I think you could do it personally. I'm comfortable with it being done either concurrently or even potentially making that a priority. But depending on how other funds are available, but that's, I guess, I say that not knowing the rules or the legality of, what the actual, I've read the what was passed by the voters, but it's a little bit unclear to me on some pieces of that. So I don't know if that needs, input from a legal office or someone else, but that's just my general perspective. I don't know what the other committee members think.
Well, this is Chris Harris, and I would concur for sure. But I think it's definitely a high priority, need for sure. I mean, we've been short on officers for quite a long time now, and anything we can do to get to get them out on the street and where they need to be, where they can be protected, I would support that as well. I mean, obviously, like you said, I mean, I don't know all the legals ins and outs, but it definitely seems like, you know, something that I would support, you know, running concurrent as well. So absolutely.
Anybody else?
I think as long as, how do I put it? As long as they're accounted for correctly by the fund usage, I wouldn't have a problem with it. And I would agree it probably should be a priority.
Okay.
I can say that any officer hired under the use tax, they have a separate cost center set up just for those funds. So they will be tracked in that cost center. So it will be pretty easy to track them separately from the remaining officers that appear in the general fund.
Okay, that helps me immensely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does that give you the direction you feel like you need from us on that?
On my behalf, yes, I think that's probably a good call. We do have 11 sworn vacancies right now in the general fund. So if we had to wait and get all of those filled before we use the use tax, then, I mean, that delays using the use tax for quite a while. So if we can get those filled, if that's going to be a priority, we would fill those first and then go back to the general fund side and fill those. So I think that's great.
My general feeling is that if you do not use the funds, then you're going to get more criticism off of that than if you use it.
Right.
So,
That sounds good.
okay. Well, then do we have a motion to accept the police use tax quarterly report?
I'll move to accept it.
Okay, Josh, thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
All right, Jared, thank you. All in favor? Well, let's call the roll again. We'll go in the same order. Josh?
Yes.
Jared?
Yep.
Chris?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So, okay. The next thing on the agenda was to look for a date for the next meeting. Heather, did you have a timeline that you were thinking about on that?
Well, to stay in line
We already
with,
set one, maybe. I don't know.
to stay in line with quarterly would be September. I think that we've been trying to do, I can't remember if it was the 4th Wednesday or the last Wednesday. So I'm not sure if you would be the 23rd or the 30th. And if we're doing back in-person presentations on study sessions, that will be October 12th. So even if you did have it that September 30th day, that would still give you time to put together for presentation.
I was thinking we were sticking with the 4th Wednesday.
Okay.
And,
So we can, the 23rd still gives you plenty, that gives you.
it gives us a couple weeks there.
Mhm.
So anybody have any concerns about scheduling it for the 23rd of September? All right.
It works for me.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Josh, Jared, what do you think?
I have no issues. I have no audits team, so be fine.
Okay.
I don't see why we couldn't, so.
Okay. Well, let's schedule it then for the 23rd. Heather, if you'll send us a meeting request on that, and I know you can't send the Zoom, you know, we don't know, hopefully won't be doing it by Zoom by that point in time. You'll have to send us a location when we get closer, or if you can schedule that so we can get it on our calendars. And so any other comments or questions or anything from anyone before we adjourn?
Hey, Jared.
Yes.
I'm just curious, since this is a public meeting, there's a couple numbers on here. I just want to give everybody an opportunity to see a Moto G7 Supra, and I'm not sure the other one that I'm seeing is 830-2468. If that's something that
I think those are both committee members. I think that Moto G7 is Catherine Alexander. She emailed me to let me know that she's been trying to connect. And then that phone number, I got a phone call from Brad Mudd. He's also a member. He just can't figure out how to unmute it. So he's been listening, just can't comment.
Gotcha. Well, I'm glad that at least they were able to get on and hopefully hear, even though they couldn't comment.
Okay, it just said I'm unmuted. This is Bradley Mudd.
Well, thank you all.
Jared, I'll just, because Catherine had emailed, just so that everybody knows, once we go into phase 2 of the city's plan to reopen, we were about ready to go into phase 2. That's why they had one council meeting where everybody was present. But we've seen an increase, so the mayor and the command team made the decision to not move forward at this point. Right. But once we go into phase 2 and beyond, we'll be back to public meetings with social distancing.
Okay. Thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, could you mark me down as present then?
Yes, we would do that. And
all right, thank you.
I'm guessing that was Brad. Brad, do you have any other questions or any, I don't know if you heard all of that. You want to register?
Yes, I got all of it, and I concurred with all the vote. Yes, everything sounded great to me. So, and I've looked over the stuff via email. So, yes.
Good. All right. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I guess I would just make a comment to all of those who are, all of those of you that are out there on the front lines and dealing with everything we're seeing, on the TV and news and so on and so forth, and those behind the scenes as well, that we appreciate all you're doing, and keep up all the good work. I'm really happy that we've not had any significant unrest here in Independence, at least, and no nothing that you all would have had to deal with individually. So all that's good. And just on behalf of myself, and I don't know about any, I can't speak for anybody else, but I appreciate what you're doing, and just want to say that. So. All right. If there's nothing else, then I think we'll call this meeting adjourned. And I don't think we have to have a vote for that. And so we'll call the meeting adjourned. And thank you for everybody for your participation and attendance.